Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to take a look at the F90 M5 and compare it against the brand new M8. If you want to watch driving impressions of the M8, you can jump over to BMW Park Lane's channel. But for this video, what we're going to do is have a look at the styling cues on the F90 and the M8, and then do a driving comparison between both of them. So let's start at the front. It's quite obvious that the F90 is slightly higher than the M8, and it's not as sleek because it is a 5-door family car. But it's the last BMW that I saw and thought I don't want to change anything on it. I think the design is pretty much bang on. So let's take a closer look. The bonnet, for example, has extra sculpting in it over and above the normal 5 Series and the M8. The grills are also a very decent size, and you don't look at them and think, they're too big and I want to make them smaller. I think they're pretty much spot on. Lights also have a very distinct icon design where the top part actually curves around more, and on the new cars, if you notice, they're actually a lot slimmer and longer. The front bumper is also much more favorable in my eyes. It looks aggressive, but it's still smooth at the same time. Whereas on the M8, you'll notice it has some add-ons here, which I think take away from the design. This area underneath where the number plate should go is much more detailed on the F90, and I really like this design element here, which breaks up the honeycomb design. Taking a look at the front end of the M8, we can see where the differences are. The grills are a lot bigger and much more in line with the big grille direction BMW taking at the moment. What I have noticed on this one, which I really like, is this black chrome finish, which I don't think I've seen BMW do before. I'm really tempted to actually do this on our F90 because I think it'll look really classy. Also, the headlights have changed a lot, and they're a lot sleeker than we're used to seeing and a lot thinner, which also means that the icon design of the lights has changed. So they're also a lot thinner than we're used to, and they don't curve around as much as they do on the F90. The bonnet is also not as aggressive as the F90. I do believe that this is the same bonnet that you get on normal 8 Series, whereas on the F90 it is differentiated from the normal 5 Series. Obviously this car's still got its front plate fitted, so it's legal. If you took that off, it would probably change the design. I think that's part of the reason why F90 does look so clean at the front. The front end of this also has a rubber splitter from the factory, and I think an aftermarket one would add a lot of visual dynamics to the front end of this car. Obviously this F90 M5 is modified, and I really like the front splitter on this car. This is made by RKP, and it's one of my favorite designs on the market, and that's why we have it on our car. There are a few distinguishing features of a BMW that distinguish a normal BMW from an M car. One of these is the wing mirrors, and this is one of the reasons why when the M2 originally came out, people were very upset it had normal M mirrors. You'd be happy to know that both these cars have the new M style mirrors, which loop round and almost connect back up to the car. Another distinguishing feature between BMW M models and non-M models are the side grills, which we first saw on the E46 M3. I really like the ones on the F90. They are quite subtle, but I really like the way they take the swage line off the top and then carry that throughout the car. As you can see on the M8, it's a lot bigger. I would say it's double the size. It extends a lot further down into the wing and extends upwards as well, rather than just being in one direction. And the reason for that is to give the car more dynamic viewing to make it look less slab-sided. Taking a look at the back of the car, and the handsome design theme continues. I really like the back end of the F90 M5, and let's ignore the modifications we made just for 1 second and look at the standard design elements. The rear lights are really nicely shaped and really suit the car, and I really love the daytime running light that loops round. You'll see on the M8 that's slightly different. The rear end of the car is actually the same as the normal 5 Series, apart from this panel here, which changes the shape slightly to integrate a diffuser, and also moves the rear reflector from the top to the side to give it an illusion of more width. Taking a look at the rear of the M8 Competition, we can see that it has a lot of the new BMW design language. One of these is the new rear light. We've seen on BMW models, they are long and elongated now, and rather than having a looped round daytime running light, they have a single daytime running light running through. The rear bumper of this car is actually very different to the normal 8 Series. Whereas on the F90 we said it's very similar to the normal 5 apart from the bottom panel, this is actually a complete design and shape change. The rear reflectors have been moved from the top to the side to give that more dynamic view that we were talking about when we talked about the wings and the gills, to make the car look wider. I think that this would really benefit from the rear reflector deletes that we've got on our F90. It would really change the shape of the car. The rear diffuser on this car is not so aggressive. I think that they could have done a much better job on this, but that leaves a big gap for the aftermarket to improve it. In my opinion, I actually prefer look of the M850i bumper. I think that's much more suited to the 8 Series, and I think it's actually more aggressive than this M version is. Whereas the M850i has a four-sided exhaust and it's integrated into the diffuser, this has gone back to the traditional twin round pipe exhaust. And to be fair, for a stock car, they're not actually that small. Usually on an M car, the rear exhaust is so small, it's one of the first things you want to change. But visually, this is not too bad. So these are 90mm versus the 100mm that we have on our F90. So obviously, we've modified the rear of our car, I think in a subtle way, but it really lifts the standard design. So we've got the RKP rear spoiler, which is made out of carbon, and it has this nice little dip here, which mirrors the double bubble design of the carbon roof. And we also have the RKP rear diffuser, which is quite subtle compared to some of the ones on the market, but it just adds that little bit of design element. The exhausts we have are slightly bigger than the stock ones. So these are 100mm per tailpipe, and this exhaust is made by Super Sprint. The M8 has rather large reflectors on the back, and it would be really good to make a reflector delete for those so it looks like our F90. This is a very small modification, but it makes a huge difference to the rear end of the car. Taking a look at the side profile of the M8, it's actually very, very sleek. I know we've got the convertible here. I would have preferred to have a hard top or Grand Coupe to compare it against the F90, but we're going to work with what we have. The design is very, very sleek. It's a lot lower in the way the bonnet scoops down and the rear end than the F90. And it's more feline in its features, whereas the F90 is actually quite butch and looks aggressive. This looks a lot sleeker. What I do really like about what they've done on the new M8 Competition is the way they've sculpted this part into the bottom of the car. It also adds a lot visually to the car. It's very dynamic, and it prevents the car from being really slab-sided. The other thing I wanted to mention is the wheels. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I really like wheels, and this is one of my favorite wheel designs to come out of BMW as a factory option. So this is the 813M wheel. It's in 20-inch and it's wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, which in my opinion are the best all-round road tyre. The design of the wheel is very similar to the concept we saw on the 2002 Homage. I fell in love with that wheel design as soon as I saw it, and I was really excited to see when BMW would start rolling that out to their production models. Although this wheel is not quite the same, it's very similar. And I really like the fact that they've not only given the rear some concave, but they've also given the front concave. So although the spokes come in quite flat at the top, they do go in towards the center, and I think the design works really well with the M8 Competition. As much as I like the stock wheels on the M8, I always like to change the wheels, and I really like the wheels that we've done on the F90 M5. So these are 660 design crypto, and we've gone up a size, so we've gone from 20-inch to 21, so we've got slightly lower profile on the tire, and we've also gone more aggressive with the offset, so we've brought the wheels out. As these are custom made, we don't have any spacers. We literally machine the wheels for the perfect offsets. So whereas on a normal wheel, you'd stick spacers on to bring the wheels out a little bit, improve the stance. We haven't had to do that with these because they're actually made to fit perfectly. Taking a look at the side profile of the F90 M5, it's obvious to see that it's not sleek, but it is big and brutish, and I really like it. I actually prefer the design of the F90 over the M8. I think it just looks that little bit more aggressive. The other thing you'll notice with our F90 M5 is that it sits a lot lower than a standard one. The standard car actually sits really high compared to a normal M5, and we're running the MSS adjustable spring kit, which lowers the car around 35mm all round and gives the car a really nice stance and also rides incredibly well. So stepping inside the car, it's quite clear that this is in a price class above the F90. As much as I love the F90 interior and it's really good for the car, the interior in this car is absolutely amazing, and you can really see where BMW are aiming this car. They're really going after the luxury segment. So things like the S63 AMG, the Bentley, and maybe even the Aston Martin. I'll talk more about the interior, but let's start the car, go for a drive, see what it drives like compared to the F90, and discuss what the interior is like to be in. Let me start by saying that this interior is absolutely stunning. They've done such a fantastic job of this and really lifted it to a completely different level to anything I've ever seen in a BMW. And at the price level it's at, you would expect it so. But when you're aiming for the luxurious market like the Bentley, the Aston Martin DB11, and especially the Mercedes S63 AMG, you have to lift your game up and elevate it to a level where you're competing with those guys. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, that it is really high quality. I love the 3D quilting. Everything about the interior feels premium. The carbon fiber in the center console looks amazing. It's got leather on the dash. It's really, really impressive. So just like when I tested the M850i convertible, it's a cold winter's day and Matt is making me drive around with the hood down so I can get the full experience. But it's actually quite comfortable in here. I've got the heating on full blast, I've got the heated steering wheel on, the seats. And when you put those on, it also heats the side pad here and the armrest, as well as pumping air out through the headrest. So even though it's cold outside, it's actually very comfortable in here. And because it is sunny, you get to enjoy the open air, and you can hear that fantastic exhaust. So I've been driving the car around for a few days and it's really comfortable to drive, easy to get on with, doing the daily stuff like going to work, dropping the kids off to school. It's very comfortable on these B roads which have very uneven surfaces, and dynamically it drives really well. The wheelbase on this car is slightly shorter than its M5 sibling, and you can really tell the difference. The handling has really sharpened up, but the car is still very compliant over British B roads. So we've jumped back in the F90 M5 so I can give you a quick back-to-back comparison against the M8. Obviously this car is slightly modified, so it's running the Evolve Stage 2 pack, which depending on what fuel we're running can make anywhere between sort of 750 and 800 horsepower. Full Super Sprint exhaust, which you can hear there. The MSS suspension and the Venturi intake. So it's got a bit more power and it's got a little bit more dynamic handling than a standard car. So in terms of interior, yes, as I mentioned, the M8 interior is a very high step above the F90 M5, but that's not to take away from this car as a daily car. The interior is very well put together, has very nice materials. It's just that the M8 feels that little bit more special. And when you look at the pricing of the car, it's like 20 to 30% more. You'd expect that. So, I mean, this car, obviously because it's tuned, is much faster than a standard M8, but even in standard form, this car is no slouch. There's not a huge difference between them in terms of performance. I think where the M8 in standard form does have the edge is in its handling. I think spending time in that car, I really noticed that the shorter wheelbase of the car does make the handling quite a bit sharper and hides the weight of the car. Whereas this, it is a big car, and although it hides it amazingly well, you can feel the weight transferring over. But for a 2-ton family car, honestly, this car handles amazingly. And with the addition of the MSS suspension, I think this actually then takes it above the M8. So all in all, it really depends on what you're looking for and how much money you want to spend. The M8 is quite a bit more expensive. You can pick up one of these now probably for around £55,000. You could spend around, what, 5 to 10 grand on it, depending on what kind of spec you want, and you've got something very similar to what we're running here. But again, I don't think they're competing with each other, these cars. This is practical, family, 4-door saloon, has loads of luggage space, whereas the M8 is a sports car and it's not that practical. But this has almost the same performance, so it's not really competing. But I think if you're in the market for one, if you want an M8, you're going to buy an M8. But the M5 for me is still probably the one to have, especially at the price point they're both at the moment. So Yeah, this one is ridiculously fast, obviously. So I'm gonna head back to the workshop. That's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you want to watch the full driving video of the M8, you can watch that over on Park Lane's channel. I just did a brief one for this comparison. Thank you for watching, guys. If you want to watch more of our videos, you can watch them over here. If you want to watch what YouTube suggests that you might like from our videos, you can watch them over here. As always, if you haven't already, please like our video and subscribe to our channel. If you've got any questions for us, please drop them in the comments below and we'll do our best to answer them for you.